Hello all, I'm Colette from Witchways, and today I want to talk to you about my favorite witchcraft practices for winter, for the times around Yule, solstice, and further on through the winter months. Let me know in the comments which of these you find helpful, if any, and be sure to share your own practices so we can all learn from each other. I hope you enjoy. Winter is about inward work, at least I find it to be so. I like to work with the spirits of the dark, of the night, deities of winter, of ice and snow. I do a lot of protection magic, a lot of hearth and home magic, fire magic, and sometimes even water magic. It's a good time of year to let the full moon light kind of illuminate the things that you generally keep hidden or are hidden from you, and it's a good time to let the dark moonlight focus on releasing what you don't need and what you don't want to carry into the next cycle. It's generally about rest, replenishment, nourishment of self. So the first set of practices that I want to share revolve around fire and hearth magic. If you burn a Yule log a little earlier in the season, you'll want to save the ashes. They're very protective and can be used for a lot of different things. You can put them in a charm bag or stir them into some water to write sigils or symbols that are protective around your house. You can carry the charm bag somewhere on you, and it does provide protection. If you have an actual fireplace of some kind, even if it's just a gas fireplace, it's a really good time of year to make offerings and call that your hearth. In a lot of European and Nordic magic, the hearth was the central place to connect with spirits, deities, and make offerings. I've talked about this before on YouTube, but you can also create a shelf somewhere near the center of your house if you don't have an actual fireplace or hearth, and use that as your hearth central area for magic. This could be a place where you make offerings of wine or cordials or water to your house spirits or house deities. You could light candles of protection for yourself and your home at this time of year, and for protection throughout the winter, you could occasionally burn a log of one of the magical trees of protection. A few that were used were rowan, ash, oak, and holly, and if you don't have logs of those, and probably most of you don't, you could also wrap twigs of those kinds of trees or leaves of them, if you can get that, around a log of firewood, and just make sure you wrap it with regular non-plastic cord like hemp or twine or some other kind of natural cord. If you don't have an actual fireplace, you could also just make a decorative protective firewood bundle of some kind and then burn a candle near it. I've probably mentioned this before in several videos, but it's one of my favorite practices and one of the ones I've been doing for decades. Early in the winter, I gather evergreens and bring them home to offer shelter to any nature spirits or woodland spirits that want to be sheltered from the winter storms. I have read that you need to take them down by Candlemas Imbolc around February 1st, otherwise they get frisky and can cause trouble because they want to get back out in the woods. In Celtic cultures, and probably other cultures in Europe, winter was a time when traditional storytellers would travel from house to house and share stories of the past, of the ancestors, of the heroes of the past time, so that they could be remembered and passed down. And you can work with this by taking time in winter to get some folklore information and research folklore, mythology, and lore from the lands your ancestors came from. And when you know that mythology and lore, it helps deepen your connection and deepen your practice. And you can think of it like a tree that in the winter puts down roots deep into the earth so it can support more upward growth in the spring. During During December and January, I do a lot of offerings to trees. It's also a time when I sing to them and I just make stuff up or hum. In Western and Northern European traditions, people used to offer spiced beverages and baked goods to the trees for a future prosperous harvest. These days, it's usually done around winter solstice or Yule, but in the past, it was even done into mid-January. Mid to late winter is the time when I start to collect my magical bark for uses in charms, spells, and incense. And if you live somewhere where winter hangs on really late, you might want to wait until almost spring equinox to do that. It's a little easier on the tree. And in order to keep the tree healthy, you never just scrape bark right off the tree. Instead, harvest branches, cutting them back all the way to the main branch that you're taking them off of. And you can take branches that are like the size of a nickel up to about a 50-cent piece or a little more. For those of you who aren't in the United States, you might want to harvest branches that are 1 to 2 inches in diameter. And you can even just take small twigs if you want, and I scrape the bark off those or just break them up into small pieces, and then I dry them in a basket or in a brown paper bag. And you can harvest branches for wands at any time of year, but I think in winter is a better time, both because it's a little easier on the tree and you can also see the shape and texture of the branches a little bit better, so it's easier to harvest and get a shape that works well for you. Check around your yard and make sure you accurately ID any trees that you have available. You can ask friends, ask around in your neighborhood, and always make sure to give the trees something in return. That can be just verbally thanking them or giving them some kind of offering like water. Also, let the trees know what you're harvesting them for. Once the bark or twigs that I've harvested are dry, I place them in jars and use them on my altar to enhance my spells, or burn them as incense, or throw them in the fireplace. Some of my favorites are hazel bark for divination, invoking your authority as a witch or to call in sacred knowledge. Willow bark is also a great one to use for making offerings to the crones, the hag spirits, or to use in women's rituals and mysteries. And I just want to add here, since trans rights and non-binary rights are so under attack right now, at least here in the United States, that I feel that everyone is entitled to define their gender as they choose. Oak is one that I can never have enough of, but I find it a lot easier to pick up the leaves and the acorns to use instead of harvesting the bark because it's such a big tree. Check out the magical properties of the trees that grow around you and see if you want to gather some of those to use magically throughout the winter. I also like to just do herbal house steams at this time of year to clear and freshen the house. And I also do them to offer a little bit of magical support to my main house spirit, the spirit of my house, and the structure of it, because the structure is a little bit under more stress at this time of year. And I've shared a few in different places here on YouTube, but here's one that you can sort of disguise as a winter or holiday scent fragrance thing instead of a witchy item. So you can make a steam using a spoonful of cloves and cinnamon for warmth and protection, the peel of 1 orange for calling in the power of the sun, and a half spoonful of rosemary for clearing and protection. It's a pretty simple thing to do. Just take a large pot of water, add your herbs, bring it to a boil, and as soon as it boils, turn it way down until it's way even below a simmer level, until it's just barely steaming, and keep an eye on it so the water doesn't evaporate out. I've done that far too many times. And sometimes cinnamon and cloves can be a little intense on the airway passages of animal companions, and citrus can contain things that are a little bit hard on them. So one option is to leave those out and just use something like rosemary and pine. Those are both really wonderful. Another solution that seems fine is to just bring the water briefly to a boil and pull it off the stove and quickly take it from room to room and just diffuse the essence very briefly in each space. Then pour the water outside as an offering to the land or encircle your house with it. I do so much candle burning in the winter, and I've shared a lot of different candle magic here. But here's another one. You can light a candle to honor the return of the sun and invoke its power to help you get through the winter. If you have seasonal affective disorder, of course, physical things are probably going to help a little bit more, like getting outside and getting enough light in general. But magic does help a little bit, and I think a candle dedicated to the sun can add a little bit more support if that's something that you have difficulty with. So you can make a bunch of the solstice candles that I talked about in my winter solstice video, or you can just take some warm colored candles and place one in a candle holder somewhere fire safe. And then out from that center, you can place lines of herbs like cinnamon bark, cloves, and calendula. These are all things that invoke the power of the sun, warmth, and protection. And as I light the candle, I usually whisper something like, I honor the sun and its return, and may this candle brighten my day. And if you want, you can just place twigs out from the center where the candle is in a ray-like pattern using some of those protective trees I mentioned earlier. And this is one of those candles that you can let it burn all the way out, or you can also just light it briefly, invoke the power of the sun and brightening your day, and then snuff it and relight it again when you need it. I'm always trying to get a better idea of what my followers would like from me in terms of content. So let me know in the comments which of these ideas you are likely to find helpful. And I want to thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, and sharing my videos. And as always, if you can and you would like to, please support me on Patreon. It's what actually allows me to do this work here on YouTube. So until next time, stay safe and be well.